Lighthouses are meant to guide us home, but some lead straight into the darkness. From time loops to screaming lights, here are 10 disturbing true lighthouse horror stories that were never meant to be found. Welcome to the channel, let's begin. The first few nights passed without a hitch. He logged his reports, cooked simple meals, and took long walks around the tiny island. But by the 5th night, things changed. Every night at exactly 2:14 a.m., the light in the tower would flicker in a very specific pattern. Off on, off on, off on. Then it'd return to normal. Arthur, being a meticulous man, climbed the spiral steps each time to check the bulb, the wiring, the generator. Everything was fine. No mechanical failures, no signs of tampering. First, he wrote it down. By the end of the week, he stopped bothering. The flickering was routine now. But that wasn't the part that got to him. It was the whispers. The first time he heard them, he was halfway up the tower. He stopped cold on the stairs, his flashlight beam trembling slightly on the salt-streaked walls. It sounded like a woman. Soft, repetitive. "Don't let them in." He froze. The words repeated. Gentle, like someone whispering through a keyhole. He searched every corner of that lighthouse that night. Found nothing. No visitors, no stowaways. Not even a bird perched on the rail. Then came the footprints. Arthur woke one morning to find bare footprints on the gravel path outside the keeper's cottage. Not boot prints.
Bare.
Small like a child's. Leading from the rocky shore to the lighthouse tower and stopping at the base of the door. The same door he always kept locked. By the 2nd week, he boarded up the windows of his cottage. Stopped going up the tower entirely. When the supply boat arrived for its bi-weekly drop-off, they found the place looking like a hermit's nest. Food left out, logbooks incomplete, windows sealed from the inside. Arthur, pale and shaking, was crouched behind the stove with a flare gun. He didn't want to leave. Said he couldn't. Said the kids in the tower wouldn't let him. "They laugh at me," he whispered. "They want me to play." The crew got him onto the boat by force. Hauled him back to the mainland where he was checked into a psychiatric facility. The doctors called it an acute stress reaction brought on by isolation. They had no idea. Arthur never really recovered. He kept mumbling about 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. He said they whispered secrets about the ocean, about a door beneath the rocks, about how they used to live upstairs before the light turned red. The Coast Guard sealed the tower after that. Rockshore was fully automated, and no one wanted the post. But the story doesn't end there. In 1993, a group of college kids, urban explorers with a camcorder and more guts than brains, snuck out to Rockshore to film a documentary. They broke into the lighthouse. They found something scratched into the wall halfway up the stairs. "Don't let them in." Below it, hundreds of tally marks. Tiny, desperate scratches in the paint. The kind someone makes when they're counting days. Or visits. And inside the lantern room they found a doll. Charred black. Its eyes were missing. Authorities confiscated the footage. The explorers never finished the documentary. One of them went missing 5 years later. His car was found abandoned near a different lighthouse in Oregon. These days, no one talks about Rockshore Light. Boaters give it a wide berth. Fishermen say they hear laughter echoing from the tower on foggy nights. Not ghostly either. Real. High-pitched. Childlike. They say if you see the light flicker 3 times, you need to turn back. Fast. Because it means they've seen you, and they want you to play. The brittle pages of a weathered leather-bound journal were found sealed behind a loose brick in the base of Elder Point Lighthouse. The diary belonged to Thomas Ellsworth, the last official keeper before the structure was shuttered in 1906 following a string of bizarre deaths and a fire that nearly consumed the tower. It wasn't a maintenance log or weather report. It was a chronicle of madness. Ellsworth had arrived in January 1905. He was alone. His assistant drowned in a freak accident weeks earlier, and a replacement hadn't yet been sent. He recorded his routines, winding the weights, polishing the lens, noting wind direction and barometric pressure. Mundane entries, methodical, for a while. But on February 13, the entries shifted. Woke to find the inside of the lantern glass smeared with handprints. Greasy, smudged. I hadn't been up there. He climbed the tower again the next night just to be sure. That's when he caught sight of his reflection in the polished brass on the stairwell landing. Except it wasn't quite right. The mouth was still moving after mine stopped, he wrote. It mouthed my name again and again, then smiled. Over the following days, Ellsworth reported knocking from beneath the floorboards, always in 3 measured reps. Sometimes he'd hear whispering from the walls. Never words, just the suggestion of voices. The fog bell rang one afternoon under a perfectly clear sky. No fog, no wind. The clapper was jammed with corrosion. Yet it rang 5 times. By March, his entries were fragmented, unsteady. They come up from the surf at low tide. Not walking, just rising. He saw a figure one evening, pale, waist-deep in the freezing surf, standing motionless as the tide receded around it. Long, black hair clung to its face. Its mouth was wide open, but made no sound. Still, Ellsworth claimed he could hear her, in his head. Always the same phrase, over and over, "It's time to come home." On March 18, he wrote, "Tomorrow I go down to her. I must. The tide waits for no man." That was the final entry. A week later, his replacement arrived by boat, escorted by 2 crewmen. They found the tower empty, the journal open on the table. There was no sign of Ellsworth. Only his boots remained, neatly placed at the cliff's edge. One of the men later reported the fog bell rang once as they pushed off from the island. It had been removed entirely the year before. Decades later, restoration crews returned to Elder Point to assess its condition for potential heritage preservation. While clearing debris, they uncovered Ellsworth's journal. But what disturbed them wasn't just the writing. It was the word Thomas scrawled backward in red across the inside of the lantern room's glass, as if someone had written it from the outside. There's a narrow inlet off the Alaskan coast that the locals call the Black Channel. It's marked on older sea charts, but most captains avoid it. Not because of reefs or storms, though there's plenty of those, but because of what sits at the mouth of it, the ruins of Black Channel Point Light. It's supposed to be gone. Dismantled in 1971 after the cliffside became unstable. But mariners still see its light. And worse, they still receive its signal. In October 1998, a cruise liner, the Corvallis Star, logged a strange emergency course correction. The crew received an automatic signal ping from a beacon labeled Channel Point Light. Only that lighthouse didn't exist anymore. The coordinates matched exactly with the former tower's location. The crew assumed it was a glitch. But later that same week, 11 different vessels, private yachts, a Navy patrol cutter, even a trawler reported visual contact with a rotating light beam. It swept across the fog like a ghost limb. Each report included the same unsettling detail. The light curved downward. It wasn't guiding. It was reaching. In 2002, a marine researcher named Reed Tillman decided to hike to the summit of Black Channel Point to investigate the lingering stories. He was known for his skepticism. No-nonsense, field-first kind of guy. He radioed in the first night, said the structure was exactly as expected. Collapsed, weather-beaten, lifeless. No light, no generator. Nothing but bird crap and sea spray. He camped overnight. He never should have done that. 36 hours later, Tillman's emergency beacon went off. Rescue crews found him wandering the rocks barefoot, bleeding from the soles, speaking in a fragmented loop. "It keeps turning. There's no crank. I saw the keeper. He saw me first. I looked into the beam, and it saw me." After being hospitalized, Tillman wouldn't sleep indoors. He scrawled unintelligible diagrams of spirals and old light patterns. One entry said, "The keeper's not trying to warn us. He's trying to swap places." In 2009, NOAA picked up strange anomalies near the ruins, pulse-like bursts of electromagnetic interference, appearing every 19 seconds on the dot. Exactly the rate of a rotating third-order Fresnel lens. The pulses were paired with seismic tremors in the surrounding sea shelf. One scientist described it as a mechanical heartbeat without a machine. There's a theory among lighthouse historians that Black Channel Point was never decommissioned because of structural risk. The last recorded keeper, a man named Elias Dunn, was reportedly never found. Rumor has it that his final log entry read, "The fog won't lift. I haven't slept in 9 days. The light rotates on its own now. I think I'm being trained to take its place." When Dunn's family requested his remains be returned, the Coast Guard sent back a sealed oilskin bag containing only his notebook and a cracked pocket watch. Its hands frozen at 3:19 a.m. In July 2011, a VHF radio enthusiast named Clara Beach intercepted a signal while scanning marine bands. It came at night, soft and distorted, and spoken in a format she didn't immediately recognize. Later decoding revealed it was in pre-1960s maritime code. Translated, it read, "Post unrelieved. Fog unending. Rotation persists. Please relieve post. Please relieve post." Today, they say if you pass near the Black Channel during a fog bank and hear a distant horn blast followed by a rhythmic beam sweeping across the sea, do not turn toward it, because if you do, you might see the silhouette of a man in a raincoat. He won't wave. He won't move. He'll just stare. And when your radio goes dead and your compass spins and time begins to blur, you'll realize something horrifying. The beam is not guiding you in. It's scanning for a replacement. Eloan Crag sits like a broken tooth off the coast of Cornwall. Jagged, wind-blast, and completely unreachable at high tide. The lighthouse perched on it was abandoned in 1923, and not because of erosion or disrepair. No, it was abandoned because it began to scream. Not groan, not whistle, scream. The last keeper stationed at Eloan Crag was Gareth Wynne, a former Navy officer with nerves of steel and no patience for superstition. He was brought in after his predecessor, Nathaniel Grover, vanished without a trace during a storm. Locals believed Grover had thrown himself into the sea. Wynne didn't believe in ghosts. His letters to his sister started ordinary. Complaints about the wind. Compliments about the food supplies. But in March of 1923, they took a dark turn. "The light is fine," he wrote. "Mechanically all is well. But I no longer light it. I cannot. Every time the lens turns, it lets out that terrible noise." He described it as a woman's scream. Anguished, drawn out, rising in pitch as the light completed its rotation. He dismantled the lens assembly, replaced gears, greased every turning part. Still, the scream returned, louder each night. He tried sleeping downstairs in the stonekeeper's quarters, but it echoed through the walls. Worse, he began hearing soft knocking at the door, always at 3:14 a.m. No one should have been able to reach the island at that hour. Wynne's final letter was written on March 3rd. "She lives in the light, or perhaps under it. Either way, I believe she knows my name now. Tomorrow I'll walk the same path Grover did. Tell Mother I did my duty to the end." His boots were found neatly placed at the cliff's edge. The light was dark. The lantern glass cracked. In 1972, a historical society attempted to restore the lighthouse as a tourist site. A 5-man crew arrived to begin cleaning up the tower. Within 3 days, the operation was abandoned. One man was hospitalized after destroying his own eardrums with a screwdriver, screaming that, "She won't stop calling." Another claimed the lantern room held a black scorch mark in the shape of a woman, and that it moved every time he blinked. Nothing was ever confirmed. The team left. The lighthouse was left to rot again. In 1998, a paranormal research team set up high-sensitivity recorders inside the crumbling tower. They left them overnight. What they captured sent one of the team members into early retirement. A shriek, sustained for exactly 5 seconds. Faint sobbing underneath. A voice whispering, "Come upstairs." Spectrogram analysis showed that the frequency matched human vocal patterns, but modulated as if they were being pulled across rotating glass. Local legend blames Eliza Grover, the mentally ill wife of Nathaniel, the vanished keeper. She supposedly climbed the tower during a fog storm in 1920 and never came back down. One account claimed she was trapped inside the lens assembly during a malfunction and incinerated when the beacon ignited. But there's no death certificate, and no one has ever confirmed her body was recovered. Today the light remains dead. But fishermen who pass Siloan Crag on foggy nights sometimes hear something more terrifying than silence. A sudden, echoing scream, metallic, distorted, but unmistakably human. And if they look up in time, they swear they see someone standing in the lantern room. A woman, pale, watching, not moving, but screaming without opening her mouth. Off the northern coast of Oregon sits a forgotten ruin, known only to the locals as Dead Man's Glass. The official charts still list it by its original name, Mourners Bay Light, but no one calls it that anymore. Built in 1888 and decommissioned in 1954, the lighthouse was stripped of its gear and sealed after erosion made it too dangerous to occupy. But something was left behind, and something stayed behind. In September 1953, the Coast Guard sent 2 men to conduct a final safety survey, Frank Dalton and Eli Suarez. The tower hadn't seen maintenance in years, and this was supposed to be their last visit. When they reached the top of the spiral stairs, Frank paused, then froze, because instead of 4 windows in the lantern room, north, south, east, west, there was a 5th, not made of weather-worn glass or iron framing. This one was narrow, black as obsidian, and facing inward, as if it had no business being there. When Frank looked closer, he didn't see his reflection. He saw a man standing behind the glass inside the wall. The man's head tilted, and then the window blinked. They tried to radio out. Nothing worked. According to the logs, their last check-in came at 2:16 p.m. They said, "Entering lantern room." They weren't heard from again until 6:30 that evening, when Frank's voice crackled back through the radio. Hoarse, shaking. "We saw it. The glass sees back. Eli's gone. I can't find the door. The room keeps turning. It's inside now. Don't send anyone else." When rescue crews arrived the next day, the tower was empty. The only sign of anyone having been there was Frank's badge, nailed to the base of the mystery window, and soaked in blood. No Eli. No equipment. No footprints leaving the structure. Just one more detail no one could explain. There were now 2 black windows. In 1979, a thrill-seeking film student named Landon Kerr broke into the ruins with a handheld camera. His footage, later confiscated, was partially recovered. In the video, Landon laughs as he enters the lantern room. He stops, goes quiet, and zooms in. "There's a 5th window," he whispers. He raises his hand to touch it. His reflection is visible, but it doesn't mimic him. It moves faster, smiles sooner. His hand lifts first, then static. His body was never found. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, hikers and kayakers reported seeing lights flicker atop the tower during new moons. Some claim to have seen a shape in the lantern room, always standing, always watching. Several locals found identical candles washed up on the shore, unlit, white, cold to the touch even in the summer sun. One man brought one home. That night, all his mirrors fogged from the inside. And when he looked into the bathroom mirror at 3:33 a.m., he swore someone was standing behind him. But when he turned around, he was alone. The candle was gone. Attempts to photograph the window have failed. Film returns blank. Digital footage corrupts. But the most disturbing rumor? That for every person who disappears in the tower, another black window appears. And now, if you stand at the base of the ruin and count the windows up top, you'll see not 4, not 5, but 8. And if you catch your reflection in one, if it blinks before you do, it's already too late. You've been seen, and something is coming out. In the middle of the South Atlantic, far beyond known shipping lanes, there's an island that shows up on no modern maps. Sailors call it the Nail, a jagged shard of basalt jutting out of the sea like a splinter of something ancient and angry. Atop this rock sits a lighthouse. There are no records of its construction. No government claims it. No shipping company maintains it. And yet the light still turns, casting its beam in impossible directions. And sometimes, the light bends time. In 1985, a Norwegian weather trawler named Njord's Favor went off course during a storm and ran aground on an uncharted reef. Only one crew member survived, Rudolf Jensen, the ship's communications officer. When pulled from the surf, Jensen looked decades older than the man described on the manifest. His hair had turned white. His skin was cracked and sun-leathered. His fingernails had grown long and warped like tree bark. He was 32. He looked 70. And his story chilled every man who heard it. Jensen said they'd followed a beacon during the storm. A steady, green-yellow pulse cutting through the fog like a lifeline. They thought it was a miracle. But as they drew near, they saw the tower. Slender, too tall for its base. Windows arranged vertically, not horizontally. He entered the tower alone, hoping to signal for help. What he found inside made no sense. There were no stairs, he said, just a ramp, sloping upward, coiled like a shell. I climbed for hours, days. There were no clocks. The walls were too smooth for time to stick. At the top, he said, there was a man, or something like a man, sitting in a rusted chair holding a pocket watch with no hands. Ticked anyway. The figure looked at him, raised the watch, and smiled. Then everything went black. When Jensen woke, he was on the beach, surrounded by debris, alone. Medical tests later confirmed impossible changes to his physiology. Advanced arthritis, cataracts, and severe temporal disorientation. He insisted he hadn't aged, that the lighthouse had fed off time, his time. Before he stopped speaking entirely, he muttered one final line in a hospital bed. He keeps the hours we forget. He's the reason we grow old. In 2009, a research satellite picked up a rotating light pulse at exact intervals of 21.3 seconds coming from the region Jensen described. A team attempted to send an unmanned drone to investigate. They lost contact after 7 minutes. Recovered data showed a single frame before blackout. A spiraling stone ramp leading into pitch black, and a shadow at the top of it, too tall, too still. Watching, the next scheduled satellite pass found nothing. The island was gone. Old maritime legends speak of a tower that hunts through time, appearing only when the stars align. A tower where the keeper never dies. He just trades shifts with the ones who find it. In 2014, a cargo ship reported seeing their own vessel passing them in fog. Same damage, same paint, same name. Through binoculars, they saw themselves, but older. And on the top deck, facing the fog, one of the crew held a pocket watch and whispered, "I wasn't supposed to find it. Now you have." If you're ever far off course in the South Atlantic, and you see a lighthouse where no lighthouse should be, don't approach. Don't look into the light, because the tower doesn't want to warn you. It wants to take you in, and make you part of the schedule. Bleak Shoal Light didn't look like a typical lighthouse. Built like a riveted iron pillar rising straight out of the sea, it stood alone on a man-made platform a dozen miles off the coast of North Carolina. They called it the Iron Tooth. It was decommissioned in 1936. The foundation was failing. The structure was unsafe. But that wasn't the real reason it was abandoned. The real reason is that the keeper disappeared, and someone else or something else took his place. In the 1980s, Cargo ship crews passing Bleak Shoal started radioing in reports of a faint candlelight visible in the tower's lantern room. Not a rotating beam, not an electrical glow. A warm, flickering flame, just barely visible through the salt-fogged windows. Each report described the same thing. There's someone sitting up there, not moving, just holding a candle. The Coast Guard wrote it off as a mirage or distant light reflection. They claimed the platform was still sealed. No one could have accessed it without cutting gear. But then came the journal. In 1936, after the keeper Jonathan Pike failed to check in for 3 consecutive weather reports, a small crew was dispatched to investigate. They found the door bolted shut from the inside. When they broke through, Pike was gone. His clothes were folded neatly beside the bunk. A pot of coffee still sat on the burner. But what truly unnerved the crew was the single white candle sitting in the center of the room. It was burning, and it didn't go out. Not when they opened the door. Not when the wind howled through. It just kept flickering. Weeks later, Pike's journal was found sealed in an oilskin pouch behind a wall panel. The final pages were barely legible. The candle keeps reappearing. I blow it out. It's there again by morning. I threw it in the sea. Found it under my pillow. Last night, it was lit before I woke. He was standing at the edge of the stairwell, watching, waiting. He doesn't speak. He just holds the flame. The last line, scrawled in a shaky hand, simply read, "I think it's my turn." In 2004, a pair of divers exploring wrecks nearby attempted to reach Bleak Shoal for footage. Only one returned. He was pulled from the water, gasping and catatonic, hospitalized for weeks. When he finally spoke, all he said was, "He's not alone up there." Rescue divers found no body. But beneath the platform, wedged between 2 steel support beams, they discovered 2 white candles, tucked neatly into a corner, dry, unburned, sitting like they'd been placed there deliberately. Stranger still, candles matching the same make and color began washing up along the outer banks. Locals say they're cursed. You never bring one home. A family in Kill Devil Hills didn't know the story. They found one on the beach and thought it was cute. That night, their fire alarms went off at exactly 3:00 a.m. No fire. No smoke. Just wet footprints leading from the front door to the base of their stairs. Today, Bleak Shoal Light is technically still standing, but it's off-limits. Storm-damaged, marked as unstable. Yet every now and then, in the right weather, boats still report seeing that faint orange flicker in the tower. If you look closely, they say you'll see someone up there. Not moving, just holding a candle, waiting for someone to take it from him. And if the flame ever dies, he'll come looking for you. Briar Shoal's light was one of those lighthouses no one wanted to talk about. It wasn't famous. It wasn't historic. It was just wrong. It stood off the coast of Maryland, built in 1875 on a spindly iron frame just wide enough to hold the tower and a narrow catwalk. Its design was peculiar. Its spiral staircase didn't follow a true center. It leaned, ever so slightly, just enough to disorient. By the 1930s, it was abandoned. And not because it was unsafe, because something lived beneath the stairs. The last keepers assigned to Briar Shoals were 2 cousins, Richard Hale and Thomas Pritchard. Their last known communication was a routine weather update sent at 6:10 p.m. on October 8, 1932. By morning, the light was out. The tower was dark. A supply boat arrived days later. No sign of struggle. Nothing stolen. Just gone. But inside, along the spiral stairwell, investigators found something chilling. Sooty handprints. Small. Dozens of them. Smeared along the inner wall from the base to the top of the stairs. Child-sized. What the public didn't know was that this wasn't the first time something strange happened at Briar Shoals. In 1899, a previous keeper named Francis Grigg vanished under similarly mysterious circumstances. His last log entry simply read, They're under the stairs again. They whisper about the fire. They want me to look down. In 1970, divers exploring the lighthouse's deteriorating foundation discovered a small, hand-carved rocking horse wedged in the iron beams beneath the platform. The wood was aged beyond its years, covered in barnacles, salt-warped but unmistakable. Etched underneath were 5 words, barely legible. "We live where stairs end." That night, one of the divers woke up screaming on the research vessel. He claimed 3 children had visited his cabin.
Soaking wet.
Eyes wide. They didn't speak. They just stared. He quit diving the next day. In 2013, a paranormal podcast crew hiked out to the rusting ruin during low tide and left digital recorders inside the hollow tower. The next morning, they retrieved them. On one device, a clear sequence played back. Light tapping, something dragging across metal, and a child's voice, sweet and breathy. "Can we come back with you?" No one had entered the tower. No footprints led in or out. Coast Guard blueprints recovered years later revealed that Briar Shoals had a sealed foundation hatch beneath the stairwell, a subchamber not listed on the public record. Next to it, a handwritten note from the original foreman. "Seal the crawl space. Do not open." They said it echoed. The lighthouse finally collapsed into the sea during a violent storm in 2016. Locals said it was for the best, but fishermen still avoid the shoals, especially on foggy nights. A few say they've heard singing, faint and distant, just beneath the waves. And sometimes, when the tide pulls out, they see something bobbing in the shallows. A tiny wooden horse, rocking, upright, facing the shore. Off the rugged coast of Brittany, where cliffs dive into black water and mist never truly lifts, stood St. Vale Lighthouse. Built in 1864, it guided ships through narrow passes and hidden reefs. But St. Vale didn't just part fog. According to sailors, it devoured it. And eventually it started devouring people too. Between 1897 and 1933, 11 vessels vanished within a 1-mile radius of the lighthouse. Each one logged the same final message: visibility dropping, entering fog bank, light is wrong. Then silence.
No reki. No bodies. No answers.
Locals began calling the area the Channel of Lost Time. Some believed the light didn't guide ships. It lured them. That the fog around St. Vale was alive. In early 1931, the keeper, Julian Marnia, began recording audio logs, something rare for the time. Phonograph cylinders, catalogued and later digitized decades later. The first few entries were mundane. Weather patterns, lantern maintenance, the odd fish storming the rocks. But then, "The beam bends downward now," he said. "I saw it last night, curved toward the sea. That's not how optics work. Birds circle but never land anymore. They hover and scream." Fog seeps into the tower. I locked every hatch. Still it comes. On October 14, 1933, Julian sent his final transmission. The fog came into the tower. It moved like a tide. It's eating the light. That was the last anyone heard from him. When rescuers arrived 3 days later, the lantern glass had melted from the inside. The light bulb somehow was still glowing, but instead of casting light, it appeared to absorb it. They found no trace of Julian, only a perfect circle of salt on the floor and a broken pocket watch, hands spinning counterclockwise. In 1964, the French Navy launched a covert investigation into the area under the name Project Eclipse. They deployed LiDAR, heat sensors, and high-altitude drones. Everything failed, but what little data they recovered showed something impossible. Regular pulses of energy, every 19 seconds, radiating outward from the lighthouse ruins. One scientist described it as an inverted beacon, not broadcasting light, but pulling in time. Then all transmissions ceased. The mission was scrubbed, the data classified. Fishermen who still work near the coast report seeing a bent light sweeping the water. Dull green, rotating slower than normal. Some say if you look directly into it, you forget what year it is. Others swear they've seen the same ship twice, an hour apart. Once new, once rusted. One trawler captain refused to go back after claiming he saw himself standing on the cliffs, waving. Radio operators have picked up distress calls in maritime Morse code near St. Vale's location. Short, repeating, always the same, "Don't follow the beam. Don't follow the beam." Maritime legends say the lighthouse was built over a geological fracture, where time folds and the sea breathes. They say the first keeper didn't build the light to protect ships. He built it to hold something in. And when the fog gets thick enough, when it presses against your windows like wet cloth, that's it breathing again, looking for another light to eat. There's a lighthouse off the coast of Scotland, near the Hebrides, that's been left off most charts for decades. Built in 1813, it once went by the name Deadmore Light, though locals call it something else now. The Mirror Post. It wasn't known for saving ships. It was known for showing people things they were never meant to see. The tower was unlike any other in the UK. Instead of a standard Fresnel lens, its beacon chamber was fitted with a full mirrored prism, a massive reflective cylinder designed to multiply and redirect incoming light. Except that's not how lighthouses work. They don't take light in, they send it out. But Deadmore's was different. The last keeper on record was Malcolm Kirk, a retired painter with a fascination for symmetry. He took the job in 1852, craving solitude and stillness. For a while, his journal entries were serene. But after 6 months, they grew paranoid, erratic, detached. "I watched the reflection of the sea today," he wrote. "It showed a storm, but the Real Sea was calm. The mirror shows things before they happen. It also shows me when I'm not in the room. Today, I turned to walk down the stairs and saw myself already halfway there." He became obsessed with the mirror, convinced it was learning. When his relief arrived in March 1854, the tower was empty. Kirk's clothes were folded beside the bed. The lantern room was undisturbed, save for one detail. The mirror lens had been shattered from the inside. On the floor, amid the glass, was a circle of salt and a single chair. Carved into the wall behind it were the words, "If it reflects you completely, it becomes you, and you stay inside." In 1988, a photographer visited the ruins on a dare and snapped a single photo from inside the lantern room. When developed, it showed 2 versions of himself, one facing the camera, and another, identical, standing behind him mid-smile. He burned the negatives and vanished from public life. Some say he still visits the island, always at dusk, always alone. Hikers and drone pilots who get too close to Deadmore often report something strange. Their mirrors fog inexplicably. Reflections blink out of sync. And sometimes, a second reflection appears in the background, one that looks just like them, only older. There are currently 12 known mirror shards recovered from Deadmore's ruin. Each one is sealed in lead-lined crates. Each one reflects more than what's in front of it. And every now and then, someone finds a shard washed up along the shore. If you're ever walking near the cliffs and you see one, smooth, curved, black glass, don't touch it, because the mirror post never stopped shining. It just stopped warning. And now it's reflecting something else entirely. You, from the other side. If these lighthouse tales shook you like crashing waves, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss the next nightmare. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the dark.